Yay!
Here.
We are here. We're here. We're live. This is awesome.
Meghann, can we do a cute introduction? Will you say I'm Meghann and I'll say I'm Jessica?
Yes. Hi, I'm Meghann.
I'm Jessica.
And this is the Meghann and Jessica Show.
Yay!
We are so excited to be here today. I am thrilled to have a good friend and fellow dame as my guest today. That's Amber Swenor. And Jessica, why don't you introduce Shayla real quick too?
Yeah, and the wonderful Shayla Boyd-Gill is here with us, which I am super excited about. Shayla and Meghann, you've both been on my podcast before, so it's really great to have everyone here, and with Amber as well. I think we're going to have an awesome conversation today, and we are keeping it real, aren't we? This is not just the theoretical. This is real life, real business, women who are actually doing it, working less than anymore.
Yes. So when Jessica and I came together with this idea, we were just like, okay, let's have real conversations, and then let's go out and find the two people in our community who are living out this principle on a day-to-day basis and who can talk about that and how they did it and what they do, what they have to struggle with on a daily basis to keep doing it. And so that is what created this whole thing. So we're ecstatic. You want to jump right in, Jess?
Yeah. First of all, we have some people who are watching us live. Hi to Monica and Martha. It's great to have you watching us. So
yes, let's jump in. So I would love, I'm just going to jump in and ask Amber, and then if you want to jump in and ask Shayla, and we can just bounce around from there. So, excuse me, Amber and I have known each other for over a year. She is like almost 2 years, I think. If we're not at 2 years, we're damn close. She is a member of our Dames of Madison chapter, and she is the founder of Soul Seed. She is also, so she runs a marketing and branding company that also works with their clients to really go in and excavate their soul. That sounds weird. I'm just going to say it that way. Excavate their soul and then be able to broadcast it out in alignment with exactly who they are. And
that makes perfect sense. If you know, you know. That's the thing.
Right? Well, and as I said that, though, I was having like this vision of Temple of Doom. So that's why I was like, this doesn't feel right. But, we just got to keep it light. So, and not only that, but Amber also is a literal rock star. She is the lead singer in her heavy metal band. And she also has a CBD company, and she supports her family, and all of these things. And she comes from a humble background back in beginnings, and she has grown to a 7-figure business and works less than far many more of the rest of us who work our butts off. And that is not what we want to keep doing as women, is working our butts off and never taking breaks, because it won't get us to where we want to go. Mm-hmm. So Amber, why don't you give us I'm sure that you didn't just all of a sudden stop working 40 hours a week or more, and then all of a sudden start making $1 million. But what was your journey with working less and making more?
Love it. And something I love that you said was having the conversation about the struggles that we still face to get there, because I love this is going to be a real conversation. And I think that there's many business owners at different points of the journey. And there's a lot of things I'm so proud of about the creative space that I now have. But I do think, for context of the conversation, that it's still a pretty slim number of business owners who build businesses and don't touch them at all. So I want to start out of the gate and be like, yep, I'm still touching things, but it's a journey of what are the right things that I want to be involved in that are my zone of genius, and how did I create more space for like creativity, more space to have conversations like this, even though I ran in here at the last moment today. So in that journey, there are a couple kind of key things. And from the start, I knew when I stepped in and built my business, I had a vision of building team. And it's okay no matter where people are at, because some people can't even fathom that until they get too busy, then they realize they need it. But I do think, since I had some of that in my strategic vision from the beginning, and I also have always been able to look at numbers, and even though I had a lot of money stuff to work through in my journey around my relationship with money, I also was able to compartmentalize, logically speaking. I could make a proactive budget and say, this is what it will take to invest in getting these things off my plate. So even though I still had my own weird, funny feelings about things, it was like I was able to compartmentalize and say, this is how, I want this kind of a team because this is my zone of genius and where I ultimately want to spend my time. And I know I want to outsource this, and this. It might take a few years to get there. But from early on, like from the day one of my business, I was able to see that and I wrote it down, even though it felt so far from reality. I just would I put it there. Right. So that was a big part of it in the beginning. It was having a vision and letting myself even start to big dream enough, even if I had no freaking idea how I was going to achieve it. And then that was outsourcing. And so from the start, one of the things I knew that would eat a lot of my energy had to do with bookkeeping. And so I hired a bookkeeper for a few hours a month. Logically, I was like, okay, this person that could be $40, $50 an hour, if I hire them for 4 hours a month, well, I could, if I'm out there seeking and working with a client, in that 4 hours, I could bring in a $10,000 client. So of course it makes sense. So I looked at things from energetic investment and not as cost, but always really investment minded. Those are some of the big, and there's, I'm sure more.
Yeah, we'll dive into more.
Yeah, but that's just that strategy piece from the get-go that helped me to own that.
Did you know, Amber, did you always know that you were going to be sort of multi-passionate in the businesses that you pursued? Like, did you build them all at the same time, or did you start sort of one thing? And because what I find a lot with clients is that they have one business that's expanded to fill the space. And something that I'm a big fan of is actually like purposely putting things in the path of that to kind of force you to have to like find people to help with things and like improve your efficiency overall. But what was your experience?
Well, so I had been a musician before starting the business. And that was a part of my journey, was I had some limiting beliefs of, will people take me seriously in business if they know I'm a rocker, right? So that was always there. But I did kind of set some of that, like we kept doing it, but it didn't get the full attention because I said, okay, you don't want to put dreams aside, but I strategically speaking, I was like, if I can get my business to this XYZ point, remove the stressor of how are we even going to pay our bills month to month, then I can have some freedom space again. So for me, it's always been this toggling balance. I do think that there's something to be said, like you can't push your goals and dreams off that till tomorrow, but at the same time, there are rhythms and seasons where I knew, okay, if this season of launching my business requires my full attention, how is that going to set me up in year 2, 3, 4? And so for me, it's been playing that long-term game, always seeing the vision of where you're going. And that was part of it. Like I made sacrifices at certain points to know that the right hard things were going to provide a lot more freedom later. And so the answer that no, it is difficult to do like 5 things at once successfully. So the answer is no, I didn't do them all successfully. And even now I'm not doing them all successfully, but I'm okay with that because I understand there's an energy to it. And I know like when the time and place that's coming for the things that I have more capacity to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some comments coming through. Tracy says, hi Tracy. Martha says, nice to be here. Looking forward to your conversation. And Monica has said, as someone who is pursuing a master's and am a stand-up, that's hard to say. And
she is a stand-up comic.
This resonates. And that's the thing. Like we're whole people, aren't we? We're not just a business with nothing else. It's not good for us to just have one thing in our life. And Shayla, I would love to hear from you because the thing that I love about your brand, Shayla, is that it's all about this like high level, up leveling, high quality luxury life, isn't it?
It is. And I loved hearing Amber speak about one of the first things that really helped you was hiring, understanding who you needed to bring on for support. My story was totally different. I wore the cape of Miss Independence. I can do it all. I'm going to learn it all. And I figured it all out. But that slowed my path down. And so my story was, it was a slow run. I was a tortoise, but I had a vision and a belief that no matter whatever I touch is going to be successful. And I was stubborn too. Okay. So it's like, no, I don't need help. I got this. I'm a mom. I'm this, I'm that. I can handle everything. And it wasn't until I literally had to sit with some of my accountability friends. And they're like, look, you're a mom of six. You're running this business. You have all these clients. You're doing your thing, but you're tired. Like, oh, how did you know? And I just had to, as much as I believed in myself, I had to believe in other people to be able to hold the dream with me. Mm-hmm. And I know for entrepreneurs, sometimes that's the hardest piece. You want people that are on the team, that are with you, that have something at stake, that really hold the vision the way that you hold the vision. And so I learned early that I needed to hold the vision differently, which needed to include growth. It needed to include support. And I needed to remind myself that support is okay. It's okay to be supported. It's okay not to have your hands in every pot because you can't stir every pot effectively. Mm-hmm. And once I got the support, I was like, whoa, what is this, time? Freedom? What? And there was even initially that guilt of, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. Because I had so much support. And if you're paying attention to what social media is showing you, everyone's in this hustle journey, and everyone wants to show this martyr of, I've been so busy, I was up all night. I'm like, I'm not. That's not my ministry. I don't want to be up all night. I have no desire to be in this hustle forum the way everyone else is. And so I learned very early on, through my own trial and error, to get the support that I needed. And that's what helped me to accelerate my growth. And support doesn't have to look like full-time hiring. It could be contractors. Whatever it looks like for you, support is what I tell my clients. Find someone that can do something better than you, that is willing to come on board and be a part of your dream team. And it just makes the dream easier for you.
And what I love about this is that this is the two of the biggest, let's say, avatars that I see in the dames is the Amber and the Shayla.
Yes.
It's the Amber who had the vision and started putting it into place because she had the plan and knew that this would need to be. And then it's the me, AKA Shayla, AKA me, which is I'm going to grassroots do this as much as I can. And I'm going to get to that point where I'm about to die. And then I'm going to hire somebody to do this. But, and it took me the first, I think, 6 years of being in my marketing business before I hired my first assistant. And as soon as I did, I had someone give me this piece of advice. She said, put 3 months of how much you're going to pay that person into a savings account. And then, because I was afraid, I was afraid I'm not going to have enough money to pay them. So I did that. And then I hired him. And then like 3 weeks later, I was like, why didn't I do this 3 years ago? This is ridiculous. It's so amazing how much I can get done. But this is the conflict that we deal with as women, is either we feel we're doing it wrong or we feel we're doing it right or we're not sure or whatever. But to hear these different stories really helps us say, okay, good. I'm not insane. And I could possibly get there too.
Yeah. And it's a reminder, there's nothing wrong with you.
No.
I tell your journey is going to be your journey. There's nothing wrong with you. There's not one journey. And that's the really cool thing about it. It all can be colored differently.
Amen.
I love that. And it's funny because even what you shared, even though I did hire just over a year in, I already felt like I was working myself to death, right? It's like, it's like no matter where someone is in their journey or what their situation, we all still have the things we're navigating. And then of course there's the learning through hiring of, I kind of stumbled through a lot of that, but I also wouldn't change any of it, right? It's just learning from it and adapting, and you keep going.
So where I want to go next is to ask Amber and then to have Shayla also tell us, there are a lot of people who talk the talk of, I went from this point to this point and I work less and I make more now. There are a few that I've seen that actually are doing that and can speak exactly to how they're doing that. So Amber, I'd love for you to paint what it looks like in your week, how much time you're spending, doing your work, how much time you're spending out there rock starring, how much time you're spending in CEO time and mind time and whatever it is. That was mind time, not in the mind. I don't think you're a minor. But what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I should have done my percentages before coming. It's been a little bit, but to me, it's about defining also like what we look at as work. So it's interesting because I am multi-passionate. I do like to take lots of downtime and breaks. Also, anyone who's into human design, I'm a projector energy, which will burn out if I'm not taking breaks. But it's interesting because people will say, wow, you have one of the busiest schedules I know. The thing is, it's very intentional. They perceive it as busy because if you ask me for a meeting, depending what it is, it might be that I'm booking months out. It's not, but it's because I have that time reserved for, so it's more time spent on like thought leadership, creating content for my coaching communities, which are growing more and more. So for me, what it is I shifted out of client management. So we have a pretty robust marketing agency with clients that we're managing. I don't touch the marketing, the website, social media. I only pop in for certain strategy things, right? So I'm not touching most of the proposals, sales, invoices at all anymore. So I'm not touching any of that. So yes, like my week, I mean, who knows how many hours a week it is? Sometimes it's 20 and sometimes it's 60. But the thing is, it's actually filled with a lot more things like what we're doing right here. So a majority, it's split between leadership of my team and developing their growth. What I define as thought leadership, coaching, developing for the coaching community, and whatever else I consider my personal bucket. Like those are my buckets. I would need a minute to
rockstar time. What about rockstar time? How much time do you spend?
I call that like personal, like it's a different bucket. And it ebbs and flows. We have a season. We have like a 5 to 6 month season where I'm on with that. And then 6 months where we're off, which actually, again, it all is a part of my masterpiece design for my life, where my band is in the Midwest. My husband and I now leave for 6 months of the year for somewhere warmer. So when I'm gone, I'm not doing the band. And when I'm back, it's a lot more focused on the band. And those rhythms work for me.
Jessica, where do you want to take us?
I would love to hear from Shayla, because I know, Shayla, you do a lot of fun travel, and there's a whole kind of lifestyle. Like how do you kind of weight that? Because I think a lot of us, we do have a bit of a cycle or kind of, I call it zones in my calendar, and exactly what you're saying, Amber. Quite often it's like, oh, we don't have a zone for that for 3 months. And there are other zones where there is a bit of breathability, but it's different energy at different points in the cycle, depending on what's going on in the business.
I was thinking about while that question was being answered. So instead of looking at the week, I'm going to go for the month for myself. So a typical month, the 3 weeks out of the month, I'm doing work with clients, either coaching groups or coaching individuals. And it's very few individual coaching calls that I'll do. And a typical week, I'm probably only working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with clients. Monday and Fridays are more so admin or freedom days for me. And the last week of the month is my week. So this week, for example, we're not coaching. I'm hanging out, chilling with the kids, whatever I promised them before. This is the week that it typically can happen. So it could be as simple. My children are homeschooled. So it could be as simple as, Mom, we wanted to go to the library. I'm like, well, wait till the last week. We can go and get a bucket of books and we can go and figure out this place and go and do these fun things. So my schedule is all about getting the family on board with me being productive with the business, but also being productive in the household. Also, I may have told you this, Jessica, when we spoke, another thing I do is every month I take a mini vacation for myself. That might
you did tell me this, and I was like, oh, I need that.
Yeah, that may mean going to a hotel for a weekend, okay? Just so I can say this is my time. There's 8 of us in this house. And so I need to get away when I need to get away. That's my creativity time. That's my time to not only take care of myself, but be really creative. And typically I'll do that along the last week of the month too. So anything I've been planning for the month forward, I can just go and really sit in that space of, this feels good, the plan looks solid, and any other dreams that I come up with during that time, I could put in place and get it out to my team to make sure they're prepared for the week following. So they're definitely buckets, as Amber stated. I know I get up super early in the morning. That's just my natural alarm clock wakes me up between 3 and 4, which is insane sometimes, but that's the quiet time in the house. And so that could look like me working out, meditating, reading, having me time. And I'm like, please, I don't want to hear footsteps during that time at all. I know the house may start rising at 6. And so I have a good 3 hours before everyone gets up, and I go to bed before the whole house goes to bed. So I'm in bed maybe at 9 o'clock, and I'm like this with my husband, adios, make sure the kids get to bed. But I know how to manage my time. I get the sleep that I really desire. I manage my time with my clients, and I don't have a calendar that's jam packed. I do have my space on there, but I have a lot of filtered space on there too. So people are booking calls with me. I'm qualifying them prior to getting them on my calendar. So I'm only talking to the people that I really want
That's
to talk.
so important. Like, it makes such a big difference. I feel like a theme that is coming up that I think everyone has mentioned is energy. And I would love to hear from you guys, well, all of you actually, kind of how have you defined for yourself, or how have you learnt to recognize what is energy giving and what's energy depleting? Like what kind of categories do you have for tasks? Like how do you approach that? Amber, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So, we've got some good questions, but I'll let you all maybe understand what that is and ask the question. And I think this is the root of so much for us, is understanding our own unique energy, because for some people it works to have that consistency every week or the same every month. Or I love Shayla's system of 3 weeks on, kind of one off. And for me, I recognize that I tend to have more seasonal rhythms, but within the weeks also, I've noticed that like a couple days on, I'll be more on, but then I need a day to back it off in terms of what I'm doing energetically, because especially with one-to-one coaching, for me is a full body experience where I'm using intuition and strategy. So I just recognize, okay, I am in control to put all my clients for private coaching Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, I do a group thing. I take the afternoon off to refill my bucket, kind of what Shayla was speaking about. And so for me, how I recognized it was, first of all, being aware of it, and no longer, I had to go through a big journey of where I would gaslight or self-doubt myself. So I was a projector fronting as a generator, and that's a human design thing. But what it means is, for years, I did the 7-day hustle, or you work really hard, until I really started recognizing that I am not meant to do that. And in order to even recognize that, you need to be in tune and give yourself permission that you can build your life and business any way that you darn well want. Number one. And then just getting aware of it and making mental notes, journaling it. And then noticing how I felt through the day and kind of where my drop-offs are, and just recognizing it, and then knowing that you're empowered to fully change and shift your scheduling and your routine to make that work.
It's really interesting, isn't it, that almost has to be something that we learn to do. Like, I don't know if it's a woman thing, but it doesn't come naturally to us to be like, oh, you're tired today, blow it off. It's kind of like, we always feel like we have to sort of push ourselves beyond like what we can really cope with. And then we get to a point of almost burnout. And then it's like, oh, I should probably cut back a bit. I really do think that, like, when we learn to stop that cycle, that's almost like a business up level all by itself.
That's part of the patriarchal shift that's happening right now. We're moving out of that patriarchal way of being the warrior and the hustler that has to grind through things, which is what men are able to do physiologically easier. When women, that is not how we're built. That's not how we work. So I feel like that is what I witness all the time in the Dames, is women realizing that, waking up to, oh my gosh, I am not meant to grind and hustle for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I need to get into my own groove. And for me, it was like, even just a few years ago, going through Kate Northrup's Do Less system and looking at it as a 28-day cycle, and looking at my energy and how it ebbs and flows and the kinds of tasks I should be doing grouped into different weeks. Well, technically phases of the four phases of our cycles. But in the beginning, we just think, we look around and we do this comparison thing and we say, everybody else is hustling, I better keep hustling. Otherwise I'm going to miss the boat, and I can't miss the boat. So for me, it was like 7 days a week, 24 hours a day working, until I stopped and was like, oh my gosh, this can't possibly be sustainable. And then getting to my point where it was like, okay, maybe I won't work Sunday, or I won't work Saturdays. I'll take Saturdays off. And then it was, okay, I'm not working weekends at all. And then it was, okay, it's my dream to take Fridays off. So then I started taking Fridays off. And now it's very easy for me to work 4 days a week. Yes, like Amber said, there are times when it pops in that I have to, pop in and just to make my head more at ease to work half of a day on a Sunday to just set the week up. But for the most part, I put my people, myself, my processes, my automations, everything into that space where I can continue to live closer and closer to what I want to live. And I think that's what's important, is that we look at it from that, and then look at it from every day, in the morning, what's your guilt-free time structure? That's what an old mentor used to call it. Where do you have the most energy for being external, and where do you have the most energy for being internal, and making sure that you're setting up your calendar for success, not anybody else's. Putting your own damn mask
really
on.
like, it's very empowering, isn't it, when you realize actually you are allowed to do what you like. So a change that I've made in my business over the last year is that now I only work afternoons, and I only work several afternoons in the week. And like I just noticed that I get tired in the morning. It takes me a while to wake up. I like to have my morning routine, eat the right food, do the movement, take the dog out, all that kind of stuff. And often I'm like, I'm so busy this morning, I've got my routine. But like, I like the feeling of like charging up through the morning and then really showing up after lunch. There's something like, I know a lot of people say they have the afternoon slump, but for me, like, it's the way that I've sort of started to do my day almost backwards. And it works for me because a lot of my clients in the US. So like, I almost feel like the morning is free time because like everyone's asleep. So like they don't need me for anything. And it's given me a lot of confidence to almost take back half of my week and just be like, this is me time.
I mean, I like the me time, and just to what Meghann stated also, and what you're saying, a lot of us were brought into this energy of the consulting coaching agencies through a very masculine world. And so you bought the program, you may have hired the coach, and you tried to emulate what they were telling you to do. And you may have found it didn't align, and you couldn't figure out why you couldn't make it work. It's because it wasn't the path that you were supposed to take.
Absolutely.
And so I'll get many people that say, well, I did this thing, I did that thing. I'm like, their thing wasn't wrong. It just didn't align with you energetically. And the more you try to force something that's not an energetic match, the more it's going to get flaky and feel like a huge mess. So the question was around the energy. In addition to that, the energy of people, being able to pick and choose who you energetically allow in your space and who you allow to consume your space. That's a big one for me. So I can control the energy of my times, when I work, when I do things, but I know very quickly, I can tell this person is draining me, or this person is fueling me. This person is a delight to work with, or this person is going to be a nightmare. Don't do it. And if you don't pick up those red flags and you do it just for the money, we've all had that client where you're like, you had the red flag. I know there was something before they said yes, and you knew it, but you wanted the money so bad that you said yes. And then you're like, okay, never again. So people,
why did you override that dang red flag? Every time you ask yourself, why did I do that? I saw it. I saw it so many times.
It's part of learning to listen to our intuition, our bodies, isn't it? Because isn't that the thing? You have that experience and you're like, I knew it. I called it. My body said to me, like, oh, why have I got like, a brick in my stomach? Or like you get that feeling. And I think it takes a lot of confidence to actually start to do life according to that, because we're given so many negative messages about like, oh, women they overreact to stuff and they're overly emotional. And I think I had a long period where my body was telling me exactly what was going on, and I didn't know how to listen to it. I think it's something that we learn, and hopefully that we improve at as we get older and wiser.
hopefully.
I'm curious how we all, so Amber, let's go this direction with you next. How do you experience there's kinesthetic, there's feeling, how do you experience what is next for you? How do you experience when there's something like, ooh, I got to step away from that? And how do you experience, yes, this is a move toward, how has that impacted you working less, being more intentional with your time? And then also, how's that impacted your business and you making more money?
And in a minute, let's look at our questions, because we've got some really awesome questions coming up in the comments box as well. But sorry, Amber, go for it.
Yeah, no, I love this. Really allowing myself to see where I feel joy and where I want to be spending my time, and just constantly tuning in with that. And here's a quick tip that may be useful for people. It's an energy study. We talk about time study a lot, and I have clients do the time study right along with energy study. Where are you drained? Where are you filled up? Even as Shayla was talking about working with certain clients, you might spend the same amount of hours on a project, but one fills you up and one completely takes you down. And so I'm just very aware of that is what helps me. It's a daily awareness. And a lot of this conversation it's the micro moments and learning how to recognize them, and micro shifts. And the more you do it, you get more confident. And I've found I'm able to recognize it more quickly and act on things more quickly. It's just like this journey keeps unfolding, but then it becomes just like your way of being.
Which means you have to actually have pause, right?
Yeah.
You have that was a big spiritual 2x4 I got 2 years ago, which was slow down to be able to go fast later, but the power is in the pause. And if you're always full and always busy and always heads down, never, picking your head up to look at the horizon, and also never stopping to look in and say, gosh, where have I been missing these subtle cues that then all of a sudden, they were feather tickles, and then they became a little tap on the shoulder, and then they became a giant slap across the face. Like, where have I been missing those cues? Because they're there all the time. Shayla, what about you in this conversation?
Yeah, so for me, it's, the pause is very important, but one of the things that I'm doing in my mornings is just visioning. And so I have my normal visioning that I'll do, but then I'll see more. And usually when I get that visioning where I'm like, okay, that scares the what out of me. What in the world? I want my gut instinct is to want to run the other direction, but I know that's my calling to move forward. And so I've had to learn the power of yes and figure out the rest. And that can be very alarming to me as the very Virgo energy, where everything's lined up. I know exactly what's going to happen. Not knowing what's going to happen can be alarming, but I also trust in a major way that whatever I touch, whatever I do is going to work. Radical faith. And so the power of yes for me is the big piece. Like when I see it, my charge is to move forward and not question it. Yes, you want to be smart about it, but I learned to move forward, to step into it. And sometimes it's figuring it out as you're doing it, but it works.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. That's super helpful. Now, should we answer some questions?
Yes.
So Tamika says, by the way, hi Tamika. It's nice to have you on the call. Tamika's come to some of my other things. How long did it take you to learn that? So do you mean sort of the not letting? I think when this came up, we were talking, or Shayla was talking about not letting certain clients in and having that intuitive moment of like, no, this is not an energetic match.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get to that?
I wasn't a quick study.
No, I wasn't either.
I wasn't either.
And so several iterations, let's say that, several iterations and several experiences and I always say you won't stop until you get tired of it. You won't stop the habit, whatever that is. You're not going to stop that thing that you do where you feel like I can fix people. I can make it work. I'm doing someone a favor. You're not going to stop until you get sick and tired of dealing with it. And once you hit that moment, when you hit that wall, the no will be powerful.
Yeah, so Tamika says, yes, that's what I mean. That's awesome. And Tiffany says, for someone starting out, can you speak to the seasons that you went through from when you initiated your business to now? How has your vision for your business evolved alongside your life? And I think that's a great question, because I always say on my podcast, personal growth is business growth. The two things, like, they happen alongside each other. And that's like the kind of best and the worst thing, isn't it? Because I don't know about you guys, but I look back, it's 8 years since I started my business, and I'm like, who was that person that I used to be? And who is this person now? Because my business has made me have to grow. And that's what makes it so hard and so painful sometimes, but it's also what makes it so rewarding, because it's not just about the 6 figures or the 7 figures. It's it's about like, look at who we are as people now. Look what our businesses have caused us to have to become. It's exciting. Amber, what would you add to that in terms of like seasons and sort of how your business evolves alongside life?
Yeah. And again, it's personal because everyone needs to define your values. For me, and I didn't have children. So for me, that first season was a lot of the hustle for that first 2 years, working 7 days a week. But that also was part of my vision. I set a goal that I wanted to build $1 million business within 5 years. We hit it at year 4. I'm not saying that anyone should necessarily follow that path in the beginning, but that's what I worked for me, because we had a vision of what we needed in our household to also create the freedom for both my husband and I, because we are musicians, and it just wasn't working either for him to stay in a regular job when you're traveling for gigs and things. So for me, that was very focused on one-to-one service, really deeply understanding the customer problems, like the grassroots things that I think are huge principles that every business needs to embrace. Mm-hmm. And even though a lot that we do for clients are marketing, I did not overcomplicate my marketing. Like, and I integrated things years later. Even to this day, there's certain things that we don't implement a lot of. Like, I don't do a lot of digital marketing and I have $1 million business, right? So that first few years was very much quality over quantity. How do we serve clients? How do we go really deep with what they need? How do we retain them? How do we because then that leads to referrals. And it was just like the building blocks. And then it moved into the few year season of really optimizing team and culture. And then moving into how do I really step into CEO and get all these systems working, that if I stepped away for a few weeks or months, the business can still make money and the systems will still run. That's kind of how my flow went.
All right. My flow was definitely, again, it was slow, but I did start off with coaches. And so in the beginning, when I knew I wanted to get into this coaching and consulting world, I got coaches, and it was a lot of one-to-one clients initially. I needed to prove my concept. And so I worked one-to-one with clients, proved the concept, definitely did not charge what I needed to charge, and realized very quickly, I'm doing a damn good job. I need to elevate. Stepped up to the next season of I'm charging more. Let me look at what it feels like to possibly do groups. Realized I didn't like large groups. I'm very introverted. So small, intimate, high quality groups are going to be a better fit for me. And then it went to, I'm going to speak. I started going to more conferences, speaking, really refining what the offering was. And throughout those 3 phases, refining who my person was. Because of course, in the beginning, I could work with every woman and help every woman. Then I said, that's not my thing. Then I had another group. I'm like, nope, I've outgrown them. And so I had to keep elevating the type of client that I wanted to work with to really get her to the level where I wanted to bring her to. And I needed a woman that wanted to grow, wanted to have a more boutique business, but still wanted to be able to scale something and have something that's high-end, high quality. And it took different phases for me to get there. But the first thing was to prove my concept and then elevate the services and the client from there.
Beautiful. I love that.
That's really relatable. And like, as I kind of think like what you guys have said, I think Meghann, you and me have almost gone in opposite directions in the way that we have sort of expanded, because you've like very much sort of built a group experience, and it's something that is very big in numbers. Whereas I don't know, the more I kind of up level in my business, the more I'm just going deeper and deeper with a really small number of one-to-one clients. And yep. But like, that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's about who are we as people.
We get to decide. Yeah,
exactly.
We get to decide what's the best model for us, right?
And it can shift in different seasons, can't it? I think like you can go through seasons where you're like, I want to do more group stuff, or you have seasons where you're like, I want to do more retreats. So I don't know. I think there's room for like all of our personalities to be reflected differently in our individual businesses.
Well, and I think that's also brings up another important thing of when I started my business. Here's a funny little anecdote story. I started my business in 2009 in social media when nobody knew what the heck it was. The first social media consultant in Denver. And I was charging $50 to $100 a month to manage people's social media accounts. So yeah, great learning. But then I moved into a coaching model and I was trading time for dollars. And then another point that I hit was this realization of, I was struggling with, gosh, I feel like I'm working all the time. I don't even know what my capacity is for clients, because I was like you, Jessica. I did work with only 8 to 12 clients at once because I wanted to work deep, and I wanted to work for 8 to 12 months with one client, well, with 8 clients at once. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I know what I need to do. This could be a good waypoint for some of those listening, which was I blocked in my calendar, okay, each client gets 2 90-minute sessions and 2 30-minute sessions each month. So my days that I saw clients were marked with client 1, client 2, client 3, 4, 5. And then I was able to block it in my calendar and say, okay, new client, would you like the first and third Tuesday from 9 to 10:30, or would you like the, XYZ? And then that blocking and that kind of stacking things made it possible for me to understand my capacity, understand how much I could make, and also helped me realize that for me to scale a business, I was not going to do it that way. And I didn't want to add coaches. I had tried that. So for me, the business model had to shift, and I created the dames out of intuition. It all came through. And as soon as I dropped into that business model and then saw what it had in terms of capacity and capability, that was where my energy guided me toward. It was like, this is your thing. This is the model that your energy needs to be in, not the coaching model anymore. But it took me years to figure that out, and years where I said, I've got to keep coaching because I'm really good at it. And these are all the reasons why I can't stop it. So I'm here running 2 businesses that are very different models, parallel, and not doing it very well until 2019. So we all have to realize these things, and it all takes time, and it will take as much time as the universe wants it to take.
What I also love about that and all the shares is there is an element of we learn by doing, and coaching and consulting is so important. I've had coaches through the journey. Shayla and I both coach. In fact, actually, I think all of us to an extent actually do. And so there is an element of we figure it out by way of trying the different things on, and coaches can help you process that and really determine what is true for you. But no one's doing it wrong. If you're like, well, drats, I spent this many months trying this model. No, that's amazing information, because you got to try that on and see what parts worked for you and what didn't. And then you iterate it and you evolve forward.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I really agree with that. Like, nothing is ever wasted, is it? Like, everything, if it's not the thing that you're meant to have, then like it leads to the thing that is the next thing for you. And I think it's not just like, we like to make it like start a business, be a success, end of the story. Whereas really it's like, it's a journey, isn't it? And we learn different things at different stages. And it's not about like, because a lot of my audience are high achieving women. We've done the university and the school grades. We've done like the corporate job. We've ticked all of the boxes. But actually, business isn't about like, give it 100%, work as hard as you can, get the best grade. There are no grades when it comes to business. It really is about like, who are you as a person and what are you looking to achieve in your business?
Now we are
constantly,
we're constantly grading ourselves, though. That is the truth. So now somebody external may not be, but we're grading ourselves. So we get to decide what kind of a teacher we want to be for ourselves.
Yeah,
if we're going to be that.
I'm starting to give myself an A grade all the time. I'm getting to that point where I'm like
gold stars all the time.
I'm living my best life. This is everything that I wanted. And I think we have to kind of get to that point where we don't need something external to prove it to us. We need to give ourselves that permission and find that validation in ourselves. We have quite a few comments that we have got behind on. Shall I give us a run through of what we've got?
Yes. And real quick, Tamika, yes, I did develop my own schedule without help. It took me a while to get there and to figure that out, but it was baffling me for quite some time. And then one day, that's what happens to me. One day I got quiet and I sat in meditation and it just came all in. And I was like, pen, paper, draw this out. Ooh, I get it. And then it became something that worked for me for years and created so much freedom.
I love it. So Martha says, this is so helpful. My word right now is congruence. I just resigned from my latest position because of a disconnect of values. No time to think, cluttered calendar. Really refreshing to hear the intentionality of Shayla's and Amber's workflow. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is such a great word, isn't it? Intentionality. That's what it's all about. And someone else says, like Shayla, I got away at least 3 days every month to reboot. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to ask my family if I'm allowed, because I still have quite young kids. Martha says, take a pause for the cause. And Lane says, hi, ladies. And Monica is in Denver too.
Hi, Monica.
It's awesome. So, and yeah, one more question from Tiffany. Thank you so much for this feedback. As you went through your experience, how did you discern that the business was really what you were passionate about? Did you ever pivot to another business in your journey? Oh, that's a good question. Who wants to go first?
I pick Shayla.
I say Shayla hasn't gone first yet.
Sure. Okay. So did I pivot? The pivot was the message. Again, the pivot was the message. The pivot was the type of client and the way in which I served the clients. My initial career prior to coaching, the huge pivot was from a career in the birthing industry. I was a doula, childbirth educator, lactation consultant, and owned an online store. I did all of that in the early 2000s, did it successfully. And so, Amber, I believe when you introduced yourself, you said, were people going to take me seriously as an XYZ? That was the same question I had. Would people take me seriously as a business coach? And I wasn't in that industry prior to that. It was all birth and Birkenstocks. Okay. So when I came over to the coaching world, I knew that I had a mission to serve women entrepreneurs and help them to build legacies. And so there was no huge pivot. It was just messaging, client, service. Those are the only pivots that I made.
Yeah, for me, it was, what was interesting is we were already like, I started the business with one brand name. It was leading more with marketing and brand, but pretty quickly it became transformational coaching of the people behind the brands. And so for me, it was, we were already doing that kind of work, but I needed to catch up on the renaming of my business. And that came through when it was ready, where I started as Strategic Partners Marketing and I rebranded to Soul Seed. And so it was bringing to the forefront the part of that we help you really align with your values, authenticity, and purpose as a business. And then the marketing supports that. So it was flipping, where before I was leading with marketing and like backdooring the transformation, where now we lead with transformation. We lead with the coaching and the development of the leader behind the brand. And then it's supported by. So for me, it was, I consider it a journey of transformation.
I do too. It's same here. I had 6 different brand names in about 6 years. Well, more like 7 years, but yeah.
We're the same person.
Yeah, we are. We're the same person. Both projectors, both Enneagram 7s. Yes. Anyways, totally the kind of person who I needed to shift and change and evolve. And for those of you out there who feel like you need to stick to something because you've committed to it or because XYZ, don't get your panties in a bunch. Don't get yourself all tied up in knots over that, because you will evolve. You will change. That is part of the freedom that you get being an entrepreneur, is that you will, I mean, I changed target audiences 3 different times. And it wasn't until that 3rd time that I hit on, oh yeah, I'm here to serve those 6-figure women who are growing to 7 figures. That's who I'm here for, especially those B2B service-based industry ladies in my marketing business, as I focused in on them. And then I got even more niched in. And then that was what birthed the Dames, because I finally found that target audience that I'm here to serve. So all of these journeys come interwoven in, and these different parts and particles. But you really, if you can get into that practice, we all have said it. Everybody has their own different words. But if you can get into that practice of listening to your intuition faster than anything else that you've ever listened to, you will be much happier in this journey. What about you, Shayla? Anything else you want to add to this?
No, well, we didn't hear Jessica's.
Oh, we didn't hear Jessica's. Yes, I'm sorry, wrong person. Hollywood Squares.
Well, I don't know. I feel like, Shayla, you were saying earlier about stubbornness being like one of your key qualities. I feel like that's totally me, because I think my business is a success because I was just too stubborn to quit, even in the years when I was like, all signs seem to be pointing to the fact that this isn't really working. But I was like, I just feel this in my soul, it's going to work. And I think that's a hard place to be when like a lot of the evidence isn't, and the money is running out and you're like, seriously? But I think a key thing for me is that like I started out on my true path, and then I took a detour, and I think it was resistance. I think it was fear. I think there was growth that I needed to do. But when I created my 7-figure consultant brand, so that's coming up for like 3 years ago, that was a really pivotal moment for me, because I was like, of course it's consultants. And until I got to that point, I'd had like the odd client who was a consultant, and it just we gelled like nothing ever before. Because before I set up my coaching business, like I built a consultancy firm where I was head of operations. I was number 2 in the business. I was really involved in the strategy and a lot of that stuff. So like it was kind of like this coming home moment of like, I think I kind of, I made it all a bit too broad, and I kind of lost my magic a little bit through that. Like I still did good work with people, but I think you can probably all relate to this, that feeling of like, I feel like I probably need to up level, because everything that I used to love, I'm cooling on a little bit, and it's feeling stale. I've never kind of run out of ideas in my business. I've never run out of content ideas. I've never kind of felt like, oh, I hate coaching and I definitely don't want to do it. I think I've had confidence that I've been on the right path for some time, but it definitely, I mean, I'm 8 years in business. It took me, the first 5 to really figure out like what my brand was. So I think I was just too stubborn though. I was like, I know enough sort of internally that this is the thing that I want to be focusing on. And I had to give it that time. You can't rush these stages of the journey, can you? And actually we learn so much as we go through them. I definitely have. So yeah, I would say that's been my experience of all of that.
Definitely.
I love that you mentioned time, because when we look at that journey of how successful businesses are, if they're saying they're falling off after 3 years or 5 years, most people don't have that kind of patience to be able to withstand the lulls and the ups and downs. If it's not popping, it's not doing what it needs to do, I need to do something else. Whereas we are long standers, we'll stand in it. We're standing in the fire like, I'm burning. Okay, please, I hope this works out well. But you have to have some endurance to be on the entrepreneurial journey. You have to be willing to endure it looking, there's some wild times, and then there's some good times. There are lots of good times actually. But if you can withstand the wild times, you can make it.
The wild times.
The wild times.
I want to hear about the fun times too. So the big part for me as a fun seeker, a thrill seeker, an enthusiasm seeker is when we take time off, because we can work all we want. We can talk about what we do when we work, but I want to talk about as you advance in your careers, as you advance in your businesses, the more time off that you're taking becomes an art, because there is a period in there where you feel like an awkward adolescent that doesn't know how to go on vacation. And then you become a vacation pro. So I'm curious as to what everyone's journey has been in that regard, starting with, let's go back to start with Amber, and how much vacation are you taking? What are you doing on vacation? That kind of thing.
Okay. So travel. Yes, absolutely love it. Working toward buying potentially a retreat-like property in Mexico so we can spend a lot more time there. But actually what I feel called to share, cheating a little because you might qualify this as work, but it's my creative endeavors, because my creativity and my ability to create experiences is a lot of what it feels like freedom to me. And so months ago, I had a vision. So I was completing my book, which just launched a month ago, and I was completing the album with my band that also launched. And I said, how freaking cool would it be to throw an event, this like huge circus party that just brings people together from all different sides of my world? And quite frankly, I did not connect it to how are we going to make money or make this fit my business event. It was really purely from, this is like expression and this is fun for me. So it took place of a vacation. But doing that, like being at a place where I had the time, the money, the team, and it was freaking amazing. Like we hosted this 3 weeks ago. We had over 100 people come from all over the world, a lot regional, but some flew in, and like created this mind-blowing evening that people have been talking about for weeks. And so for me, like that filled me up, being able to become a person and have the kind of life that allows me to get a creative vision. And now I told myself, okay, you can't think of anything else until after June 1st, but I already have ideas going. I'm like my own production company over here. And so for me, that's a lot of what I consider my time off to refill my cup, is creating purely because it feels freaking exciting.
Yeah.
I love that. I remember when I had a coach in 2016 or 17. She asked, what would your business and or life look like if money wasn't a thing and you just really did what you wanted to do? I said, I would definitely be that person that travels the world at different retreat centers, writing books, just relaxing and inviting clients to come and meet me on for different experiences. So it's really funny that you said that, Amber. So for me, when clients are working with me, I ask them, what would it look like if you take 3 months off of your business every year? And they're like, oh my God, I can't possibly do that. I'm like, well, actually you can. So the way it looks for me, December is off. There's no working happening in December. And every week, the end of the month, all the other months, we take that off. It adds up to 3 months. So I help people to see it's very realistic. It's just how you divide it up. That's what's important. So when I take a break, I've learned to truly take a break. I usually will go to Aruba for 2 to 3 weeks in December, and I do nothing. I chill out. I have my own time, but then I travel throughout the year too, and I host retreats. So all the retreats are work. My retreats are just experiences. And so for me, it doesn't feel like work. My clients get to come, we have experiences, and then I stay longer while they go home. And so I'm still retreating, I'm still having vacation, and it's fun. It's my way of renewing myself so that I can be a better mom, a better wife, and a better businesswoman. So that's how I experience.
I can't wait to host you at my retreat center.
I would love it. Let's do it.
You two need to be in cahoots, that's for sure. Well, Jessica, I'd love to hear about your experience with vacations, taking time off.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something. So at the start of this year, I kind of said to myself, I want to have more adventures. And a part of me was like, you sure? Like, really? Because I'm a big introvert. I love my time at home. I love my downtime. And like, for me, it's like a real big part of like protecting my energy. Actually, you know, we have the creative ideas when we're not like sitting at a computer being like, come on, deadline, but when we're just like doing something else and when we're engaging that side of ourselves. So yeah, like a big part of it, like we got our dog last year. We're cat people, so that was a big thing for us. And actually like having my walk with the dog every day, like we go at quite a pace. She's the kind of dog that like if I run, she's like, can you go any faster? Come on. So like we have a lot of fun doing that. And I think there's something for me about just like being like out in nature. Like I get a lot of inspiration and a lot of thoughts. Like, you know, we're really lucky. We live on the edge of like a big national park in the UK. And so like, you know, it's like, oh, there's a babbling brook and there's some beautiful birds. And like, there's just all these like wonderful kind of sensory things going on quite often. So that's been a big part of like how I like protect my energy, how I kind of absorb rather than give out, because I think when you're a coach, you give out all the time to like, and you know, you need to show up, you need to be switched on. That doesn't just happen. Actually, it's a really important thing. So a big intention that I'm still having this year is to go on more adventures, to travel more. Yeah, I can't remember if I said, but I just had my first one last week. I went to Florida, which was super amazing. And I was just like, I want to do this again. So I think that's the thing. It's realizing this is a whole new world. And actually, when you do what we do, we have so much control over it. And it's remembering that and remembering to kind of to activate that in ourselves, give ourselves permission to do the things that we want to do. How about you, Meghann?
Absolutely. I am leaving in, let's see, a week from tomorrow for France for almost a month, which has been something that I have been planning since 2020, and it was supposed to happen in 2020. So I'm very excited because I'm going back to the place that I love most on the planet, and I speak French fluently. So I'm ecstatic, beyond ecstatic. And this is something that I told myself I couldn't do for a long time too. You know, there's no way I can possibly take almost a month and go to my favorite place on earth. There's just no way. And there's also no way that I can possibly work a 4-day week. I've figured it all out. And again, there are some times when I go back into that bad habit or the habit or whatever you want to call it. But I live in Colorado. We have thousands of hiking trails. I hike all from now until November when the snow keeps me out of there. And that is the life that I choose to live. And as much as I can, I get to warmer areas during the winter. So this is all things that we get to choose. But one thing I want to say is that even now, the first few days when I'm on vacation are very hard for me They're very awkward, shutting off my work brain and saying, no, you cannot deal with that right now is very difficult for me. I actually need to talk to certain people on the phone and be like, okay, how do I disengage? How do I, my team's got this. They've got this. I've got all of the people, the processes, everything else, but I struggle like heck with this. So don't feel bad if you feel like, if you're listening and you feel like you're someone who struggles with that, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And true story, I got back from Florida and like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have 100 emails. Had like 3 emails because my team had dealt with everything. And I was like, I could have gone for 2 weeks.
Right. Well, ladies, we're right at the top of the hour and I just am so grateful. Jessica, do you want to say anything as we close today?
Thank you so much. Firstly, everyone for listening, but Shayla and Amber are wonderful guests. We handpicked you guys because we think that you're completely awesome. And we knew that both of you would have so much to teach us and like our audience about this whole thing. But yeah, I think it's so important for us. I speak for Meghann and I that like we use this as a platform to hold space for women who know that this is what their lives, what they want them to be like. But like, it's a journey, it's a process, it's difficult. You know, it's hard to have fun sometimes when you're so geared around productivity and high achievement. And actually, it's great for us to be having these kinds of conversations as women. So thank you so much, guys, for being part of it. It's just been really awesome to kind of to hold space for this and to see the comments. And yeah, like, let's all be the rising tide that lifts all boats. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Beautiful mic drop. Thank you both. We'll see you again, everybody, in the next Meghann and Jessica show.